Hello, I'm HG Tudor, and welcome to another discussion between me, the Ultra, and the delightful Blair, the Duchess of Narcissus, who joins me in her baseball-capped glory. Hello, Blair.
Hello, HG.
Thank you for joining me today. And we're going to be discussing the saviour complex. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, this is a noted and recognized condition whereby an individual who experiences it has a compulsion to save people, perhaps by undertaking sudden charitable works, donating, rolling up their sleeves and getting out in the field, but they feel compelled. It's much more than just wanting to help. It's as if feeling chosen, that they're special in some way, that they've been set on this earth to aid and save people. Now, I've spoken about that in the context of good old This One's Wife, whereby she operates with a saviour complex because of her narcissism. And in a moment, I'm going to be talking to Blair about a similar situation, but driven by something else. But let's just talk about This One's Wife for a moment, Blair. We've seen her saviour complex, which manifests in the bananitarian activity that she engages in, the faux philanthropy, that she feels that she is special, that she's a living saint that has been placed upon the earth to show us the error of her ways and save us. Would you agree that's a fair summary of part of her character?
That's a fair summary. I
Yeah.
think she probably thinks she's better than what you even described. But yes.
Undoubtedly the case. And so she believes that it's her role, that she almost has some special powers. In some narcissists, it might go so far as to even thinking they could heal people by the laying of hands, etc. We've not seen This One's Wife do that. She just believes in the restorative power of the hug, it would appear. But what she engages in is turning up to places invariably where she's not necessarily been invited because of her poor boundary recognition. And then thereafter engaging and going around as if she's some kind of blessed saint, doling out succor and wiping people's fevered brows and soothing their troubled souls. Now, as I've explained previously, this is driven by her narcissism, which creates a delusion of her being helpful in order to control those people that she's interacting with, in order to control the people that witness her with these supposed acts of kindness, but they're not, because she has no emotional empathy. That it's done to receive fuel because people will respond and say, oh, isn't she kind? She's almost like Diana, Princess of Wales, which of course is what she's angling for. And to enable her to manage that facade, which is a residual benefit. So her narcissism, not all narcissists behave this way, but with her being what I categorize as middle mid-range, it fits very much with her deluded view of herself, that she is this kind of savior. If you were to say to her, oh, you think you're an absolute savior, don't you? She'd reject it because it'd be a threat to her control. But that's what's going on in the background, that she thinks she's come to save people and that she has the power to do so. Now, the savior complex isn't just something that can be seen amongst narcissists. It could be seen amongst people who are schizophrenic, for instance, but also in relation to those that have bipolar disorder. And this is where Blair is going to share her experience, because she very candidly explained to me, after having seen my video about This One's Wife and her savior complex, explaining this is something she'd experienced in the context of her bipolar, of which she's always been forthright and honest about. So Blair, tell me a little bit about how that's manifested with you.
Well, when I listened to it, and I have heard it referred to as Messiah complex or a savior complex before. And for me, and when I speak about bipolar, we're all different. But when I speak about it, it's going to be generally similar to everybody else. And it's not why I wanted to speak about it is we don't have like a Messiah complex. To me, that sounds more of coming from a place where you do think you're special or things like that. When I've experienced it, it's more of a helper complex, I
Hmm.
guess. And then in somebody with bipolar disorder, it's only going to be when they're sick. They don't act like that all the time.
Okay. And when you
Um,
say when they're sick, is this an episode of mania or an episode of
it will
depressiveness?
be during mania, or
Yeah.
maybe or a mixed episode. Never depressed, because most can't move when they're depressed.
Okay.
They can't do
Okay.
they can't do anything.
So they need somebody else with savior complex at that point to come along and give them a hand, I'd imagine.
Right.
Okay.
So I would liken it to somebody, and that's what like I want to, because I would just something that I always want to clear up is I want to help people understand. I don't want somebody just with bipolar disorder to get labeled as a narcissist when they're just suffering from their bipolar disorder, and how to maybe differentiate, or a
Hmm.
narcissist get away with something when somebody's like, well, I think that's because they're bipolar, they're acting that way when they're
Well,
actually a
that's
narcissist.
right. As we've discussed in the past, it's quite common for all narcissists to claim that they're suffering from bipolar or even be misdiagnosed. Now, just to touch on that, the significant difference is that somebody with bipolar will be acting from a place of having emotional empathy, and they're affected by their bipolar disorder to cause them to act, for want of a better description, act out. The narcissist has no emotional empathy, and they are driven by a sense of self-interest to demonstrate cognitive empathy to get to the prime aims, which people familiar with my work know: fuel, control, character traits, and residual benefits. Somebody with bipolar will have emotional empathy, and in effect, it would seem that the bipolar harnesses that. Would you say, for instance, it'd be fair to suggest that ordinarily you would regard yourself as a fairly helpful person, and that this is just like a sudden boosting of it, or does it come out of
Right.
nowhere?
So, for instance, and you may not experience this, but just in general, like if I'm non-symptomatic and well and fine, like if I'm driving down the road, or walking through the grocery store or whatever, you might see different things and say, oh, I wish I could help that person, or oh, that person looks like they need help. Like if you're driving down the road, whereas
Mm,
like, if you're in mania and you're having this messiah complex, you'll try and help every single person that you see. you but you can't help everybody. It's
sure.
almost
So
like,
is it an irresistible urge that I mean, I'd be more inclined if I was driving down the road to actually run over them and put them out of their misery. But for
right.
is it an irresistible urge where you think I've got to go and help them now?
Yes. And also like to even you'll put yourself in danger to help other people. Like liken it to like a pinball machine, like what a pinball machine looks like.
Yeah.
And like say, and that would be like while you're out and about during the day, and the pinball machine is all of the problems that people are having, you're going to see, and that the ball goes off, and every single problem you see, you'll try and help and fix it. And
Yeah.
if somebody if you figure out, like I've given people rides before that I shouldn't have. If there was a building burning down, they would go and run into it. If you were driving and saw something like down, like over a bridge, that somebody's bike bicycle tire was flat, you would go out of your way to stop
Mm.
and help every single person that you see having a problem with, or
Is
having
it
a problem.
is it a case that you are seeing a genuine problem and then there is an irresistible urge to help, or does it cause you to see a problem that isn't necessarily there?
Um, no,
So,
there's
for instance,
probably
so sorry. For instance, you see an elderly person at the side of the road, and it might be that they're wanting assistance to get across, or maybe they're just standing to wait for a sufficient gap in the traffic, or they're stood there and they're admiring the view, and you go over and think, "Oh, do you need help crossing the road?" Is it that you, and you start taking them, and
uh,
they go, "Well, actually, I was just admiring the view."
I think I never perceived a problem. I don't think that was there. I actually like adopted an elderly person once. was like made it my mission to like help them
Hmm.
and everything. So it's just like any other, regular person. You notice people needing help all the time, but you can't help everybody. But when you're in mania and you have this helper complex, you will try and help every single person that you can, that's possible, to your own. I've paid for people's groceries before. I've seen the people on the street that I thought needed money. I've given them money. I've, you just go out of your, like, dangerously out of your way to help strangers. You're not even so much helpful with people Like, my mother would have loved all the help I could have given, like come and help her do things. It's you just try and help everybody that you see that might need help with something, or loading their groceries into their car. If somebody's struggling with it, you'll run over, and they might not want somebody to help them, but you'll be overbearing with. And somebody I know what one time said to me, "You're not Jesus," and I took huge offense to that, because I didn't think that I was. But I guess hearing to everybody, Jesus went around and helped everybody. And that's where I think people's misconception is, that you think you're some sort of savior, where you really just want to help everybody.
Well, I was
But you
what I
don't
was
have
going to.
these like grand scheme. You don't have this grand scheme. Like, I never had a grand scheme that I was going to save the world, or I was able to save the world. I just wanted to help every single person that I saw that needed help with something, or like helping them read a like a map, or and you can become overbearing on strangers, where they're like, "Get away from me."
Yes.
That's
What is the mindset? Is it I I have the ability to help, and I will. I must run around and help these people because I've got special powers to help people, or is it I just have this urge that I can see people. There's so many people that need help in this world. I've got to just go and help them.
I didn't go out, like, I didn't wake up and say, "I'm going to go help everybody I see." It's just, and that's what I'm going to do today. It's just during the course of a day, anybody that I noticed that needed help, or I thought that needed help, I would stop and try and do something, as opposed to just be like, "Oh, that person looks like they need help," but keep driving down the road like people
Hmm.
will do. Or, "I hope that person gets help." Like, you're hyper focused on, and notice, you know, people notice that people need help all the time, I guess, but you don't have time to stop. It might be dangerous to stop, unsafe. They are strangers, you know. Whereas when you're in mania, you don't think anything can happen to you. There's almost a certain level, similar to your psychopathy. We're not afraid of anything.
Hmm.
It's just not
Okay.
afraid of anything. So, I've given some. One time, a woman outside of the grocery store, I missed her bus or something, and she said something to me, and as opposed to me saying, "Well, I can wait with you to your next one," or, "Sorry to hear that," and just go on with my day, or, "Let me call you an Uber," or whatever. I'm like, "Well, I can take you. Where do you need to go?" It's
Yeah.
just not safe thing to do.
And when this happens, when you have helped somebody, is it a case of you feel like you've scratched an itch,
No,
or
you just want to.
it just doesn't go away? You've got to then go and help the next person.
Yeah, if it's just like, I can help this person, so I'm going to.
Do you feel good about it, or is that irrelevant?
Um, that's irrelevant. I, I just would do it because I think that the thought they needed help.
So do you think it's more about
It's for, I guess the differentiation would be, the bipolar person would be on more on the micro, like they actually are going to help one, because nobody can save the world. I mean, say it's helping to save the world is helping one person, but where a narcissist might be like, "I'm going to save everybody." Like, well, I
well
never
that would
thought I
that
could
would
save
yes, I mean that would accord
everybody.
with I mean you would get certain narcissists because of their grandiosity. They would talk about saving the world and then wouldn't lift a finger to do anything about it, because it's common with many narcissists that they'll talk about it but don't actually deliver. So I will say, I have the power to change the world. I'm going to do great things. I'm going to eradicate hunger. I'm going to cut down pollution. I'm going to ensure that child illiteracy is wiped out. And it all sounds very good. And of course, the narcissist, because of their grandiosity and a disconnect between their actual ability and what they think they can do, causes them to say all of this to assert control over an audience and draw fuel by way of people's responses. And of course, they've got what they needed in the prime aims in that moment. So there's no need to follow up. Whereas with you, it's not talking about it, it's the actual doing of it.
Right. And it wasn't like a plan. It was just as I would run into through the course of a day, running errands or doing whatever I was doing. If I saw somebody that needed help, I'd stop to help them, whether they wanted it or not.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you ever attempted to help somebody and they've turned around and basically you've misgauged the situation, or they've turned around and say, no, I don't need any help, get off me?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm a stranger.
Yeah.
trying to help them. Some people would to take the help. Some people would there were people out there that let me buy their groceries or just give them money because I thought that they needed money, and
yeah,
things like that. But yeah, it's mostly we'll almost we'll hurt ourselves trying to help the people. If that makes sense. And you just want to, if you're able to, you're able to. It's not a plan. It's not, I never broadcast on social media. I helped this person today. It was just, I noticed it and I would go along and do it.
Because it strikes me that the manic aspect of it is almost like this build-up of pressure that needs to find a release. And so for some people, when they're having the manic episode, and we've talked about this previously, they will engage in spending money, for instance, and they will do so frivolously and without restraint, almost as if this is build-up of pressure, and it causes them to have to find an outlet in some way, which they do something to excess. So it might be, for instance, going and exercising to excess, or maybe having a lot of sex, or spending a lot of money. And here it manifests as running around helping anybody and everybody that you see that you believe needs help. And it then creates this saviour or messiah complex, or as you called it, like a helper complex.
Yeah, so to me it's more like a helper complex, but to others looking in on it, I guess it could be from their from how they're perceiving it is, like I said, somebody said, you're not Jesus. Stop helping everybody. But because Jesus would walk around and help everybody. But I never came from a thing of where I thought I was Jesus. I would just, it's like if you see somebody that needs help, I would help them, or I'd stop the car to help, or going out of my way to help somebody.
It's interesting, actually, because I wouldn't immediately associate, although I recognize that Jesus did help people to the extent that if one believes in the individual called Jesus, that he was portrayed as a helpful individual. But I think you would, it's interesting because I would associate more with someone saying, you're not Jesus, with you thinking that you could perform miracles and that you can heal people and that you can walk on water, not just about being helpful. So I think it's interesting that your friend or whoever it was turned and said to you, you're not Jesus. So there's no spiritual or religious aspect to this.
Well, when people, when I can't say, I mean, I don't know any atheist bipolar people, but when people do get manic, they get extra religious. So that is a part of it. It's like, you get uber religious and very spiritual and everything. So there was a spiritual aspect, and this is what God would want me to do. But I never thought I was a Messiah in and of myself. It was more of maybe doing the Lord's work. I didn't think I had any special powers, or.
So you didn't think you could heal?
It was more like, no.
Oh, okay.
No, I'd never thought.
I mean,
I could put my hand on anybody. And then so I was at the drugstore one time. And I adopted this older lady. I could say I adopted her.
Should we call it what it is? Kidnapped her. Okay.
Right. kind of. So I was at the drugstore and she was ahead of me and she was having trouble with her prescriptions,
Mhm.
or the insurance wasn't covering it, or whatever the story. I can't specifically remember, but so I ended up paying for her prescriptions. And because she was actually a citizen of Jerusalem. So when I saw that, because I could see her on her ID and everything, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to help this lady, because she was, you know, I, that religious part came in. And so for like the next month, I drove her everywhere. I paid for her prescriptions. Now she didn't, or I didn't pay for her prescriptions, but I paid for it that time until it got straightened out. And then she had this surgery. I'm like, and they like kind of like totally butchered her. And I was like, I was went and like called all the attorneys I know to like sue this hospital. I mean, I was just, and then some of my family and friends were like, she is using you. I'm like, she's not using me. It
Mhm.
was more like I wouldn't leave her alone, because I just wanted to help her.
And
So, but
this lasted for a month.
yeah,
And were you helping other people at the time, or was everything focused on
anybody,
her?
well, y- there's only so much time in the day, but like if I would
Mm.
see if I would see other people that needed help along the way, I would help them. But I really like I felt bad for this lady because she was like an immigrant and everything, and that's really where that came from. And then so then finally some of my friends were like, we need to meet her. And then so then when they met her, they realized that it wasn't her, it was me. Like
Yeah.
she didn't mind my company and I was helping her, but they realized that she wasn't using me. It was me. Probably they knew I was sick, and then it was me just wanting to just go over and above and beyond for this woman, and that's all. They're like, okay, she's not using you. I just
During
wanted to help her.
during this period of when you're unwell, being sick as you describe it, presumably if you're sat on your own, you don't see anything or anybody that requires help. So you can be just sat there. But you go outside and you see somebody stood at a bus stop and it's not covered and it's raining, you want to run over with an umbrella for them.
Yes.
And therefore, in effect, this desire to help is just triggered by witnessing any sort of need that's around you. So you're sat now in the kitchen at home, and if you were unwell now, could you just sit there and be watching something on your laptop, or would you feel this near irresistible urge to go out and look for people to help, or are you only affected by it when you witness it?
Only affected when I would witness it.
I see. Okay. So basically, when that happens, the simplest thing would be for someone to say, right, you're staying under house arrest. I'm not going to let you go out there, and then you won't see people that you need to help. What would, for instance, happen if you're sat watching television and on comes one of the interminable adverts of, a child in a foreign country and, help poor Joshua. His parents were blown up in the Civil War. He now has to drink rainwater out of a sewer. For just £2 a month, you can help him get clean water. Are you then compelled to get onto the phone and start donating?
No, not that stuff. No.
Why? Why is that different from seeing somebody in the flesh?
Um, I guess because I know that a lot of those places, they're scams, or the money doesn't really go to the people,
But
and things like that.
what if Mrs. Miggins at the bus stop, she's put in a dodgy benefits claim and claims that she's decrepit, and so she goes along with her stick, and that's a scam. But you'd be more likely to help her because you have this mindset that charities are just scams.
Um,
Do you think little Joshua isn't in need? Is that what it is?
no. I don't.
I'm just interested. It's not to
No, I
catch
know.
you out.
I'm trying
I,
to think. I'm trying to think only because I'm trying to think. I'm not sure that I watch too much television when I'm sick.
Okay.
Maybe if I actually watch, I'm busy painting or or like stopping on the side of the road. I like to drive around a lot. Um,
I'm just interested in understanding the way that your mind is working, because when you're experiencing a manic episode, it seems that there's no restraints. So you see somebody that requires assistance, therefore you would help. But the scenario that I've given there of little Joshua, it's almost as if there is something that would restrain you, because your default setting is charities are generally a scam. Little Joshua probably does need the help, but whether your money will reach him is another
right.
question.
Yeah. There's still an element
Yeah.
of and when I'm not sick, as I'm driving down the road, you'll see people, maybe you don't, but like you'll notice people that need help all the time, especially if you're in a city or where there's more people. You'll notice it. It's just you don't stop, or you'll think to yourself, oh, I hope that person gets some help. And you keep going because you can't help everybody, or they're strangers, or it might be dangerous or whatever. But it's just the difference between when I'm sick is I'll stop as I notice these things. But little, the TV commercials aren't gonna I'd rather help somebody than like a TV commercial where I couldn't see it, I guess. I don't know. I don't
So
watch
that so
TV
there,
when I'm sick. It's hard to explain, I guess.
so it's not a completely unstoppable compulsion then.
Um, no, I mean, you're still yourself, and you're
Hmm.
still, it's just, you just stop and help as many people as you can. It's not, I guess the point that I want to be, it's not a complex. It's not it's you just act on more stuff than you would when you're not sick. Like I acted on everybody that I saw that I thought needed help. And I didn't tell anybody about it. There was no me telling people when I was sick. If people saw it, then that's when they would say, well, you're not Jesus. Like, stop it. You can't help everybody. I didn't do it for any other than you notice somebody needs help, so you'd help them. That's
I'm
There
interested
was no
again.
grandiosity about it.
No, I understand that. I'm also interested in the perception because, and I accept, as you have referenced yourself, that for somebody like me, maybe I'm not picking up on it. I do, as a consequence of what I've learned, recognize when people are in distress. I recognize the signs of somebody that's in distress. So I'm not completely oblivious to them. Some narcissists are. I'm not. In certain instances, of course, seeing distress is an opportunity. But I'm just thinking about that driving into a city, and you talk about seeing lots of people that would need help. I'm just thinking if I drive into a city, I don't, it's not like, I don't know, maybe you live in some crime-ridden hellhole where people are getting mugged and things like that. But I don't
Mm,
see that necessarily. I would drive somewhere and see lots of people that I would automatically think, oh yeah, they need help. But you talk as if they do. That there are a lot of people that need help.
well, like for instance, I had to go into a bank one time, and I guess a smart grifter or a smart homeless or whatever is sitting outside of a bit. They had a cup, so to me they needed help. I gave them money. They were outside of the bank, and
Okay,
so
yeah,
to me that's
yeah,
somebody that I thought needed help. Like they were,
yeah.
anybody that's kind of just sitting on the, had down on their luck, to me, needs help. Now they could have more money in the bank than me, but that's how they're still sitting out there. And so people like that, um somebody with a walker that's at a bus stop, she probably needs help. I mean, that's not an ideal. I guess anybody that's, I hate to sound so, I guess anybody that you perceive as less fortunate than you think needs help. But like an older lady loading their groceries, she needs help. Not, not everybody's like on Skid Row and everything. You just think everybody needs help.
Yeah. So it seems to me that there does seem to affect your perception somewhat, because it's you've just mentioned about those that seem less fortunate than yourself, but you might have an elderly person who's quite spry and robust, and they have no problem loading up their groceries, but your brain's saying, old person, groceries, they'll need help.
Right. Yeah, it's the perception. Yeah.
So there is some perception to it. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, the little old lady by the side of the road, you think, she needs to help getting across, and you're thinking, well, actually, no, I was just stood here admiring the view,
Right.
and now you've taken me across the road. I need to get back again. Thanks very much for that.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I see. And has it ever got you in serious problems, this helping people?
Only just, I've told you that, I spent a lot of my money the first time I got sick. No, luckily enough, nothing bad happened to me. Things could have happened to me, by helping strangers, or some lady saying, well, I missed my, this was at the grocery store. I missed my bus, or, that doesn't cross your mind. Again, there's a level of nothing can happen to me. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. That's out the window. So that's where it gets, I never saw a burning building with children in it when I was sick, but I bet you I would have run into one if I did when I was sick. So, no, nothing bad has happened to me, but it could have.
I could actually help you with this, because I could go around setting fire to things, which I enjoy doing, and then that would give you a basis for running around seeing, is anybody need my help? There we are. What a partnership that would be.
Some kid had their cat was stuck high up in a tree, and was like, my cat's stuck in my tree, and I happened to be driving past.
Yeah.
I'd stop, like, I can get your cat out of it, and I'd try. It's just stuff like that. It's just it's as you're always talking about the radar. As things come up on your radar, you want to address every single one, as opposed to, I hope that kid gets his cat out of it. I hope somebody helps him get his cat out of the tree and continue to drive down the road.
Sure. Does it make you think that, I know we established you don't think you've got superpowers, but does it make you think you can help to a greater degree than you actually can? So let's say, for instance, you see the boy with the cat stuck up the tree, you immediately think, I could shin up there and pull Tiddles out of the tree, when in actual fact it might be rather difficult to do. Does it cause your risk assessment to be affected?
I'm not sure. Risk assessment, I guess, would be fair, but it's more your judgment is off. Like, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And afterwards, when you came across this concept of the savior complex, or the messiah complex, did you think to yourself, that's how I behave? You recognized it in yourself?
Yeah, when I heard, I actually, when I listened to your video about Megan and her messiah complex, I probably wouldn't have equated it to what I went through had you not referenced bipolar in that video, because that's not, it's different, and that's why I wanted, I sent you the email. I'm like, it's kind of different. I wouldn't have thought the same thing, because it's, they're very grandiose mind, and not saying that they're, I haven't been grandiose in other ways when I've been sick. Like I told you, I'm going to be a world famous painter and all the other things like that. But it's not a complex. I never felt like a messiah. But you do have the urge. You want to help everybody that you can as you go.
Yeah.
It's not, hers, she wants to help everybody on an industrial level, but she talks about it where I would just help individual people, because that's still helping people.
Yeah. But it's subject to the financial resources that you have and the energy that you have, you could potentially be helping lots and lots and lots of people whilst having an episode.
Right.
As I mentioned, that although the grandiosity of the narcissist is thinking, I can save continents and I can save the world and so forth, but there's also the aspect of the driver behind it is, of course, the prime aims. Whereas with somebody with bipolar, that isn't the driver. It's almost a boost in energy levels and a compulsion that's generated by an episode of mania, which has an outlet in, rather than spending money, although that can be kind of linked to it. It's the releases, in effect, scurrying around, helping and helping and helping. And you're not doing that because you're trying to control them. You're not doing it because you're prompting a reaction by way of fuel. You're not doing it to manage your facade, which is all the reasons why a narcissist. So this saviour complex, in terms of the behavior, which could vary in terms of helping people, doing lots of advocacy, doing lots of charity work, doing lots of volunteering, that activity is something that can be undertaken by a narcissist, but also somebody that's bipolar. It's the driver that makes them do those things, which is the difference. The actual outcome of the behavior, although I would suggest that with the narcissist, you're probably more likely to get a lot more talking about it than the actual doing. And it sounds to me, perhaps with bipolar, there's a bit more of the doing rather than the saying, which might be linked to this build-up of pressure, as I liken it to, as trying to find a release by doing it. Whereas with the narcissist, it's not about finding a release, it's about using it to control people. And
I think the narcissist is going to always have this complex, whereas the bipolar is going to only be within a finite period of time.
Yeah, I mean, not all narcissists will operate with this saviour complex. Some don't, because they genuinely recognize they don't give a rat's ass about people. You're more likely to find it with mid-range and greater narcissists that believe that either they are very caring and helpful and kind people, which you find with the likes of this one's wife, or you've got an individual that's got substantial resources and recognizes that there can be a benefit obtained by supposedly helping all of these people, ranging through to out and out delusion, believing that you've got special powers. I mean, for example, we all know that Henry VIII was a narcissist. And at one point, his childhood friend, Brandon, was getting old and he was ill. And so Henry told him to kneel and placed hands upon him and started saying, "I, the 8th Henry, command you to be able to," etc., behaving as if he could heal him. That was a delusion because he had no healing powers. And so his narcissism drove him to believe that he could, in effect, save Brandon by healing him. I don't think that Henry VIII went round with an idea that he could save lots of people. I don't think. But that saviour complex manifested in that particular instance when dealing with his childhood friend. And that, of course, was driven by the delusion of his narcissism. Some narcissists, it's more about talking about helping people rather than thinking they can actually heal people. But you could also see where many of these narcissists would end up in religious situations as well, believing that they have the power to help and to heal and to fix and so forth. And that compels them to believe that they've got some kind of special spiritual power, whether it's within formal organized religion or some kind of cult. That accords with their narcissism. And so you mentioned it can last for the duration of how long you're unwell, in effect. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you are obviously you're aware of what's going on when it's happening, although you might not immediately recognize that you're unwell. Afterwards, do you look back on it and what's your view of the episode? How do you regard this behavior where you've been running around helping everybody?
I don't regret helping anybody. I'm grateful that nothing bad happened to me.
Yeah.
That's usually like, thank goodness nothing bad happened to me. That's usually just.
Would you say your default self is you're generally a helpful person?
Yeah, if you can. I mean, yeah, it helps people if you can.
Yeah.
Not everybody's able to help everybody all the time. And I've said this, here several times. People do notice when people need help. It's just you can't help. You don't stop. You don't have time. It might not be safe. You feel bad for them, but there's nothing you can do. You do notice that where normally, but when you're ill, you will stop and try. Every time you notice somebody or, or think somebody needs help. It's but most normal, rational, reasonable people know they can't. You see homeless people on the side of the road, homeless people not on the side of the road, but in cities and everything, and you think to yourself, oh, you feel bad for them, but you just keep walking.
When
what are you supposed to do for them?
When you've had an episode and you've attempted to help somebody and they're saying, no, get off, I can pack my groceries, leave me alone, you crazy woman, do you persist? Do you keep going, no, you need my help, let me help you?
No, I don't
so
think
so you recognize that boundary. If someone turns around and says, I don't need your help, thank you very much, you'll back off at that point.
Yeah, but I'd offer and go over and
does it make you, does it make you feel bad that they've rejected you? No, you just think, I'll look and find somebody else now to help.
Well, no, I don't think. I don't say to myself, well, who else can I go help? It's just, if you look, it's not like I have this overwhelming urge to go and help people. It's just when you see somebody who you think needs help, you help them. And sometimes, and it's perceiving.
If they say to you, I don't need help, then it almost like switches off that compulsion in that moment, because, oh, this isn't a help scenario, so you can walk away from it. And then you walk a bit further and you see somebody else that needs some help, and they bing, it springs up again, and you've got to go over and help them. And then when you've helped them, then it
I never would wake up in the morning and be like, I'm gonna help people all day.
Sure.
I was just through the course of my day, I'd see somebody I think needed help, and I would stop and help and address every single instance that I thought of somebody needing help.
And
it's not like it's not a complex. It's, you just act on every instance that you see, whereas normally you wouldn't.
Yeah. Interesting. Does it ever leave you exhausted?
No, you have all kinds of energy when you're
Sure.
So no, but I just wanted to make that difference. It's not a complex, I don't think. And that's, she has a complex. She has many Megan has many complexes, but it's that goes away with me. It's more of it's not a complex, it's a compulsion. Not a compulsion, it's just I'm not being driven by, I'm gonna help people all day. It's just when you see it, you do it.
It's a bit like when I see an epsilon semi-moron, I want to shoot them. I get it.
Right. You'll just start acting on. You'll just start acting on it.
I'd be very busy.
Right.
Well, Blair, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and insight about bipolar and the compulsion, or rather, not the compulsion, but the need that arises to help people, and drawing the distinctions there with the narcissist that behaves in a similar way, but for different reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you.